What's happening, everybody? This is Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, in conjunction with Donkey Punch Central. Continuing with my 2011 awards, we're into the video game section now, so we're going to be giving away a couple of video game awards. As you can see, I've got my work vest on, I got Kohl's Represent, wearing my big loud work gloves, because I'm about to go to work for you. We've got a couple of video game awards that we're going to give away in this video. I'm going to give away my most disappointing game of the year, as well as my bottom three, or my top three, however you want to look at it, worst games on the year. This is going to be a bit of a negative video, but you're going to have to deal with it. We're going to start with most disappointing game. And since it's the most disappointing game, I'm going to do this in the most disappointing way I know how. The nominees for most disappointing game of 2011 are Brink, WWE All-Stars, Duke Nukem Forever, Rage, and Battlefield 3. And the winner of my 2011 Most Disappointing Game Award is Duke Nukem Forever. Alright, in all seriousness, Duke Nukem Forever does win this award for me, and here's why. It's not that Duke Nukem Forever was a terrible game, because it wasn't. I played it and I had fun with it. But at the same time, given the fact that the fans of the series were waiting 12 to 13 years for this game, you know, the payoff wasn't enough. And I get that it's Duke, and you're trying to have this whole thing, this whole aura about Duke's character and everything, but I mean, you know, some of the stuff just like, it just didn't get over with me. Not to mention the fact that you start the game without a weapon. Like, you start the game, a fucking Duke Nukem game, without a gun. You know, and then there's just, I don't know, there was so much there that just felt like so much fluff, and so much stuff that didn't need to be in there, in what was ultimately an unfinished game, because as soon as the game came out, there was already patches and DLC for it, so it was like, it was already an unfinished game. You know, it didn't get it done for me. It just absolutely didn't. Neither did any of the other games on the list. Brink advertised itself as this fantastic shooter that did all these things new, and it ended up doing things that games had done before and not as well as those other games. WWE All-Stars, I'm a wrestling fan, and this was a fighting game, not a wrestling game, so that bugged me. Rage, Borderlands ripoff, and I know Borderlands didn't, before you jump all over me, I know Borderlands didn't write the book on dystopian, you know, end of the world, whatever. It didn't write the book on this atmosphere, and I understand that. But I'm a big Borderlands fan. Rage felt very much like Borderlands for me, so too bad. And Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3 just felt clunky to me. The game mechanics in it, I didn't like the game mechanics whatsoever. And the fact that this was supposed to be the big Call of Duty killer just didn't get it for me. But Duke Nukem Forever wins my award for most disappointing game. And we go to my bottom three, or top three, however you want to call it, worst games on the year. Note that none of the games that I mentioned there before are going to make anywhere near this list, because it's not that they were bad games, they just disappointed me. Anyways, but these are just some bad fucking games. I want to give a little bit of a shout out to two games that didn't make the list but were very, very close. Thor, God of Thunder. Looked like it was rendered on Microsoft Paint. And suffered from having no story and being terribly, terribly repetitive. Was basically, alright, kill these ice monsters. Okay? Kill these ice monsters. Okay? Knock down this wall. Okay? Kill these ice monsters. Okay? Just didn't work. It was just a bad game. As well as Cabela's Survival, Shadows of Katmai. This is probably helped along by the fact that there's a phenomenal episode of Two Best Friends Play based on this game. Maybe that helps it along to why I felt this was a horrible game. But, I mean, it was just a horrible game. It was cornball. It was really bad, really cheesy. And I don't think that's what they were going for. I think they were going for a more serious game. And it didn't come off that way. You had crows that would attack you for no random reason. Long periods of just painfully bad platforming and things like that. You had bad shooting mechanics in it. Had a silly story. You had fucking werebears, like dire bears from fucking World of Warcraft. I mean, it was just a bad game. But it did have a wickedly rendered husky dog named Togo. So, you know. But that didn't even make the list. These three are my bottom 3 worst games on the year. My number 3 worst game on the year is Wipeout in the Zone. If you've never seen the TV show Wipeout, it's one of these game shows that makes idiots fall around and hurt themselves. Wipeout's a god-awful show. It's terrible. If you want to see a show like that, watch Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. It's an English adaptation of a Japanese game show called Takeshi's Castle. And that's funny as hell. Like, they do it really, really well. But Wipeout's just like, oh, look, that guy smashed his face. That's so funny. Like, it's just a bad game. Or a bad TV show. And a terrible game, too. The graphics in it are horrible. I think on the X360 you actually use your avatar character to do it, and then look, my avatar just fell in water. It's just a fucking stupid game. It's just a dumb game. But that's only my number 3. There's 2 games worse than that. That's terrible. My number 2 worst game on the year, Shadow Harvest Phantom Ops. This is a game in sort of the same vein as like Fable or games like Skyrim or things like that, that advertises, oh, you have ultimate choice, and whatever you do in the game affects the world, and da-da-da. But it's a game that only gives you the illusion of choice. The only choice you really have is whether you pick the guy or the girl. If you pick the guy, it's a slightly different storyline than if you pick the girl. But it's only giving you the illusion of choice, because once you make that choice, the game is basically laid out in linear fashion for you. That the decisions that you make don't affect it at all. Where you have a game like Catherine, who you'll probably be hearing from later, where your decisions ultimately could result in, I think there's 9 different endings. And I love games that do that have multiple different endings. Chrono Trigger, of course, being the ultimate. And aside from that, the graphics in the game were not good. The shooting mechanics in the game were not good. The story was only bleh. So, I mean, everything this game tried to do, it failed at. And fell flat on its face, failed at. So that's why it ended up on my list as the number 2 worst game of the year. But there's one more. There's one more. Terrible fucking game from this year. It's my number 1 worst game on the year. Transformers Dark of the Moon. I believe it's Strike Force Edition. Okay. When you think of Transformers, what do you think of? I'm willing to bet that you probably just said fucking robots that transform into cars and vice versa. Because that's what Transformers was. It's cars transforming into robots and fighting robots. In Transformers Dark of the Moon Strike Force Edition, you have cars, right, starting off okay, that transform into other cars. Huh? Cars with guns. And all you have to do is blow up the other cars with guns. No robots, no fighting robots. It's basically Twisted Metal, but with the Transformers characters. And when it comes down to that, I would much rather just fucking play Twisted Metal. The game was such a letdown. And it suffers from the same thing that Thor God of Thunder suffers from. All you do in the game is you go to this area, and it's like, there's 12 Decepticons here. Blow them all to hell. So you do that, and then it's like, okay, cool, awesome. Look, here come 12 more Decepticons. Blow them all to hell. So you do that, and then it's like, okay, go to this next area. There's Decepticons there too. Such a terrible game. Holy fuck. This game was just bad. So Transformers, Dark of the Moon, Strike Force Edition, congratulations. You were the worst game of 2011. As far as I'm concerned. We just put in a hard day's work. That's all for this video. In the next video, I'm going to break down some honorable mentions and the top 10, my personal top 10 video games on the year. Thank you very much. Justin, Blockbuster Guy on Twitter, Blockbuster_Guy, follow me on Twitter. Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, in conjunction with Donkey Punch Central. See you later.